Welcome everyone to today's Fireside Chat event, Relationship with Trust. It's good to have everyone here and just to see all of your faces. So today we're going to be having our event on relationship with trust. Today's event is going to be recorded. So if you do not want to be in the video, you can turn off your camera or just stop your video. Our breakout rooms will not be recorded because we're going to be going into breakout rooms later on in the evening, but they will not be recorded. My co-host Tu and I are going to be switching between English and French, and to follow in the language of your choice. We're providing complete transcriptions in the links in the chat below, and our colleague Megan will also be providing a summary translation in the chat for the times where we speak in English and we would not be translating in French. We would have Megan put that in the chat. And if you would also like to follow along, we do have in the chat below the link to the script for today, so you can just click on that link and follow along as we go, because we have that in both English and in French. I will just pass it over to Tu to speak that in French.
Bonsoir, bienvenue. Cette séance sera enregistrée afin que nous puissions la partager avec les personnes qui n'ont pas pu y assister. Veuillez noter que les discussions en petits groupes ne seront pas enregistrées. Bussola et moi, Théo, allons co-animer en anglais et en français. Nous partagions le lien à la transcription complète dans le chat si jamais vous souhaitez suivre le texte en même temps en anglais ou français. Également, notre collègue Megan offrira des résumés traduits dans le chat pour la durée de la séance. Pour les discussions en petits groupes, nous aurions un groupe parlant en français. Si vous y serez placé, si vous l'avez noté dans l'inscription. Et sinon, et si vous n'êtes pas certaine, s'il vous plaît, vous indiquez dans le chat maintenant. Merci, Bussola.
Thank you, Tu. So over to our land acknowledgement. CINAC is headquartered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe in Ottawa, Ontario. Our organization is currently led by white settlers, and we've imposed a settler colonial way of being with the land because our programs were not co-created with Indigenous people. We're committed to repairing our relationship with Indigenous communities by dismantling harmful practices, changing the way we operate, and co-creating our programs. So over to you, Tu.
Merci. La CINAC a son siège social sur le territoire non cédé des Algonquins Anishinaabe à Ottawa, en Ontario. Nous reconnaissons également que notre organisation est actuellement dirigée par des colons blancs et que nous avons imposé une manière coloniale d'être avec la terre parce que nos programmes n'ont pas été co-créés avec des peuples autochtones. Nous nous engagions à réparer notre relation avec les communautés autochtones en démantelant les pratiques nuisibles, en changeant notre mode de fonctionnement et en co-créant des programmes. Pour moi, je veux dire que je veux rejoindre de la territoire des Anishinaabe, des Haudenosaunee et des Huron-Wendat et du territoire de Williams Treaty. Ma famille vient de l'Estonie et de Grande-Bretagne et moi, je suis canadienne de première génération. Je suis mère de 2 beaux enfants, une musicienne et éducatrice dans le système scolaire public et aussi je travaille avec le CINAC comme animatrice. Merci, Bussola.
Thank you, Tu. I'm just going to be doing a personal introduction for myself. My name is Bussola Joao. I am currently the project administrative coordinator here at CINAC. I am honestly very thrilled, happy to be a CINAC. I am working with Mark and Dennis. He's not here today, he's on vacation. I am currently working with him on the community consultation project, and it's just been an exciting journey, just like going through this community consultation project and just learning all of the things our CINAC is doing. So yeah, this has actually been an amazing journey for me. I love hiking. I would tell you one fun fact. So every time I go hiking, I would pick up a stick. That's like my little buddy throughout my hiking process. Just have that stick with me and then just like go. And then when I'm going, I put it in like a safe place, hoping that when I go back to that trail, I'll find it there. But yeah, I never find it. So yeah. Yeah, so that's a bit about me. I am from Nigeria, and yeah, I've been in Canada since 2019, and I've just been enjoying Canada, but even though COVID here, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. I currently live in Oakville, Ontario, and the town of Oakville resides on the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Mississauga Neutral Huron-Wendat. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Osidinsoni. Yeah, so that's where I currently reside right now. And yeah, I am happy to be here. I am not sure Tu would be doing that in French, but yeah, Tu, feel free to introduce yourself in whatever language.
Awesome. Actually, Busola, I did it. I went ahead and I did it before I passed it back to you. So
Yay. Oh, I see.
All good. I know, I'm so thrilled to be doing this with you. It's back. Yeah, so we can keep going on.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you too. So today we're just going to give a brief introduction of the community consultation project. Today's event is part of a 3-year community consultation project we are undertaking with support from the Lawson Foundation. Our goal is to meet with Forest Nature School practitioners so that we can articulate as a community what a quality Forest Nature School in Canada looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Improve our professional learning courses, and also sets the stage for representing the Forest Nature School sector in discussion around policy and systems change. First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities have been learning from the land and teaching their children on the land since time immemorial. This project is not in any way meant to advise or in any way regulate Indigenous communities. This project is specifically designed to address settler organizations who are operating forest nature schools on Indigenous lands.
Cette séance fait partie d'un projet de consultation communautaire de 3 ans que nous entreprenons avec le soutien de la Fondation Lawson. Notre objectif est de rencontrer les praticiens et les praticiennes de l'École de la nature afin de pouvoir, 1, articuler en tant que communauté à quoi ressemble ce qu'on entend et ce qu'on ressent à une école de la nature de qualité au Canada. 2, améliorer nos cours d'apprentissage professionnels. Et 3, préparer le terrain pour représenter le secteur des écoles de la nature dans les discussions sur les changements de politique et de système. Depuis des temps immémoriaux, les communautés des Premières Nations, des Métis et des Inuits apprennent de la terre et enseignent à leurs enfants sur la terre. Ce projet n'a pas pour but de conseiller ou de réglementer de quelque manière que ce soit les communautés autochtones. Il est spécifiquement conçu pour s'adresser aux organisations de colons qui opèrent des écoles de la nature sur des terres autochtones.
Thank you, too. So the purpose of today's Fireside Chat. The Fireside Chat series is a virtual space for First Nature School practitioners to meet, share experiences, and answer questions related to a theme. During this Fireside Chat, we're going to dive into 5 principles of First Nature School practice developed in 2018 and how they relate to our relationship with trust. We want to learn from you what these principles look like on the ground, how we can measure the principles, what are the measurements, how do we know a Forest Nature School program is missing these principles, and is anything missing? Our hope is to have a lively discussion about quality practice in Forest Nature School. We are CNAC and not in any way here to judge anyone's practice or be critical. I hope we can all see that everyone here is passionate about Forest Nature School, and it's likely that there are differences between us and what we value as essential. I hope we can all keep an open mind and embrace differences of opinion. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have questions or thoughts after this, you're welcome to share them in whatever way is best for you, video, audio, written, or whatever creative way, drawings, and send them to community@childnature.ca. You can also complete the survey for this session, which will be linked in the chat and also would be available on our website.
Merci, Busola. L'objectif de la discussion informelle d'aujourd'hui, c'est la série Causerie au coin de feu et un espace virtuel permettant aux praticiennes des écoles de la nature de se rencontrer, de partager leur expérience et de répondre aux questions liées à un thème. Au cours de cette causerie au coin du feu, nous allons nous plonger dans 5 principes de pratique de l'école de la nature élaborés en 2018 et la manière dont ils sont liés à notre relation avec la confiance. Nous voulons que vous nous disiez à quoi ressemblent des principes sur le terrain. Comment pouvons-nous mesurer ces principes? Quelles sont les mesures? Comment savons-nous qu'un programme d'école de la nature respecte ces principes? Et y a-t-il quelque chose qui manque? Nos espoirs pour la conversation, nous espérons avoir une discussion animée sur les pratiques de qualité dans les écoles de la nature. Et nous, le SINAC, ne sommes pas là pour juger la pratique de qui que ce soit ou pour critiquer. J'espère que nous pouvons tous voir que tout le monde ici est passionné par l'école de la nature et il est probable qu'il y ait des différences entre nous et ce que nous considérons comme essentiel. Nous espérons garder l'esprit ouvert et accepter les différences d'opinion. Un point pratique, si vous avez des questions ou des idées après cette session, vous pouvez les partager de la manière qui vous convient le mieux, par vidéo, audio ou écrit. Et vous pouvez les envoyer à community@childnature.ca. Vous pouvez également remplir le questionnaire au sujet de cette session qui sera lié au chat et disponible sur notre site web.
Thank you, too. So we're just going to go over to introducing our guest speakers for tonight. So first here we have Maria. Maria has always enjoyed the dynamic of inquiries as a pathway of learning. Her background is chemistry and she holds a PhD in energy and material science. Ever since she became a mother, she realized how children are real scientists. Their innate capacity of asking why naturally engages them with the scientific method. Through this experience, Maria grew an interest in education based on forest and nature learning and is currently in training with SINAC as a forest co-practitioner. She was already a chemistry teacher, and now her dream is to write a book on the chemistry of learning. I definitely want to read that book. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much, Ursula.
Our next guest speaker to introduce is Margaret Fraser. Margaret is an outdoor play advocate, working, living, and playing in the land of Jojage, known to many as Montreal. In 2013, she co-founded The Lion and the Mouse, a nonprofit committed to children's right to outdoor play in the city, where she continues to bring forest school and play work principles to her work as the general coordinator. As a child, she lived in Vancouver Island, where after a bumpy start to school, she connected with the land as a way to engage in relationships and processes that grow and change with us. She is the mother of a neurodivergent family of 4 and has taken keen interest in exploring the intersections of outdoor play, the right to the city, and disability. Welcome, Margaret.
Hi.
Okay, I have the opportunity here of introducing Alix Wilson. As a child, Alix was blessed with a mother who saw her to notice and celebrate the little things happening in nature around us all the time, while living in many places across Canada, always in spots with lots of big wild spaces to spend hours exploring. When Alix in turn became a mother, it was amazing to see the wonder of nature again through her son's eyes. Alix was reminded of the insatiable desire children have to learn. Children have to learn everything about the world around them and how children love learning outside, no matter the weather. After running a nature-based program out of her home for 5 years, Alix became part of the team at Hand in Hand Nature Education as an early years nature educator. From there, Alix had the chance to take part in SINAC's first Nature School Practitioner course and develop numerous programs for a wider range of children in a community. For the past 6 years, Alix has been helping children tune into the cycle of the seasons, learn about the amazing world outside our back door, and gain what she hopes is a lifelong love of nature. And there are many years ahead for Alix to continue the important work of connecting the children to nature. Thank you, Alix, for doing this, because as a child, I always love to go outside and just explore, and my mom always would look for me. So yeah, thank you, Alix, and it's good to have you here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you, Busola.
Okay, so to start things off, we're going to explore the principle that Forest Nature School is led by educators who share power with learners through play-based, emergent, and inquiry-driven teaching and learning methods. We invite you all to click the link in the chat to view an illustration by Trevor McKenzie that suggests 4 different types of inquiry. So that should be there in the chat for you now. I'll just give you a moment to look at that. And I'm feeling this need to make sure everybody can see it. So if you're having a problem, maybe viewing it, maybe put something in the chat. Oh, good, there's the link there. It's showing the different types of student inquiry, from structured inquiry to controlled inquiry to guided inquiry to free inquiry. And so Alix, if it's okay, I'd like to start with asking you, CNAC describes the pedagogy of Forest Nature School as play-based, emergent, and inquiry-driven. What does play-based mean to your Forest and Nature School practice?
Well, thanks. For us at Hand in Hand, play-based means that everything that we do comes out of the children's play. So first of all, we define play as something that is just done for fun and has no agenda attached to it. So participants are able to join and leave of their own will. And there's no specific outcome. Like at the beginning of the play, the kids aren't saying, hey, we're gonna learn about gravity, or, they just go about it. And so through that play-based learning and that occurs and that free play, as educators, our job is to stand back and notice what's happening and notice the ideas and topics and interests that's coming up from them. And that's where later we can delve into the emergent and inquiry-based stuff.
Thank you so much, Alix. Really appreciate that. Margaret, I'll go to you now. What does emergent mean in your Forest Nature School practice?
I think for us, emergent to me really feels like adults are in the back seat. And what that means for us, often working exclusively in the city in very public spaces, emergent means as an adult, my job is to tell other adults to take the back seat. And my job is to also tell, different people who manage public spaces and even at times elected officials that they're getting in the way and that play is happening and not just in playgrounds. And if we want emergent play to happen all around us, we need to stop telling kids what to do in every space they're allowed to exist in. So emergent means saying, hey, step back. You can walk your dog over there. You might be uncomfortable watching this happen. You might want to join in, but get out of the way.
Right on. Thank you for that. And Maria, what does inquiry-driven mean in your Forest Nature School practice?
So basically, like in chemistry, which is a more abstract concept, and working with older kids, it might mean a little bit more like the questions are their own questions, and I should puzzle them down and direct them to the subject where I want them to go. So it doesn't necessarily mean controlled inquiry, but it means more like a mix between a guided inquiry, type of inquiry, and free, which I think it's the ideal breakup interval where I should be, in order to keep like a curious environment, in order to keep the motivation up in the classroom, and in order also to transmit something to them, because in science we need to transmit as well, and all the opportunities and all the questions are good to puzzle and transmit them. So basically it means in my field, it means to build on what the students already know. It means to build on what they know. It means to build on their outside school experience. That's important for them to connect, to be connected to the subject, to the point. Basically, it's that.
Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you all for such diverse perspectives and for bringing your practice to us and answering these questions. Busola, I'll pass it over to you now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you too. So we have another principle of practice, and another principle of practice is that Forest Nature School views children and youth as innately competent, curious, and capable learners. So my question, and Margaret, I'm going to ask you first, if you don't mind. CNET describes Forest Nature School pedagogy as a pedagogy of trust. What does trust look like and sound like in your program or practice, and who and what principles in that trust?
I was trying to think of how to put this into words other than you know it when you see it. But I feel like when I see a group where there's trust amongst the kids, there's an ease of just being together. Like amongst, when I'm talking amongst a group of children, there's not a tension, there's not a, and there can be a flow, and there's an inclusion that everyone who is present is part of this group. And I think part of that is if there's trust, then no one has to force themselves to be a certain way, or no one needs to force someone else to be a way that isn't how they should be authentically as part of themselves. So I see it as like people can be themselves and be there and show up as they are, which is hard to, I think it's really hard to know if trust is present and existing unless you're part of the group. And so I think what it takes to have it is group members who are committed to building it, who see the value of it, and even amongst children who care to establish reciprocal relations, who know that we're going to be coming back to each other and that we want to come back to each other, and there will be broken trust and we have to want to rebuild it. So I guess there's trust where we value it and work at it. Sorry, that's not so concrete, but.
Oh my God, that's short and like straight. You hit it on. Like, thank you, Margaret. That's really true. Like, just build, like letting the children, like, just go and like just trust in them. And yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Margaret. And Alix, I'm just going to ask you the same question. Would you like me to repeat the question again?
Did you say Alix?
Yes, Alix.
No, you don't need to repeat the question.
Okay.
Yeah, the trust in a program, as Margaret was saying, is hard to see if you're not a part of it. But I think there are certain signs that show, maybe it's more like what you don't see. Like you don't see educators hovering over kids or saying no a lot. You don't see boundary cones keeping kids collected. They're sort of there already. And I think in building that relationship of trust and that culture of trust, it does fall on the educators, both with the children as well as with the families, because I think, especially in Forest and Nature School, the trust between parents and educators is really big as well, for them to give us their children to share outdoors and keep safe in an unenclosed space can require a lot of trust. And I think it's done through building mutual respect, between the kids and them for us, and the parents and them for us, in, as again Margaret was saying so nicely, just being able to be who you are and being accepted that way and honored that way. Nobody's bringing bad ideas, or, you know, everyone has an equal say. There's a culture of care that we make among each other. We care for the kids care for us, the parents as well, everybody's involved. And I guess a culture of cooperation, in that we really work to build that sense of us as a whole, and in such a way that it becomes like a family. Everybody feels included and valued for who they are. And also, and for me as an educator, I think a way that I can build that relationship of trust is by choosing some vulnerabilities to share with families as well as children, and showing that humanness, and that can, you know, helps others to do the same, but also to show that we're in it together, and it's not that I have some power over you children or parents somehow. I hope that's a good answer.
Yeah, that is, thank you so much, Alix. Yeah, you know, just sharing that like vulnerability with children is like very good, because like then they're able to like, you know, just trust you and like, you know, just keep like going with whatever like they're doing, and knowing that it's okay sometimes to fall or stand or whatever they do. Thank you so much, Alix. And Maria, I'm going to also ask you the same question.
So I think it also, in addition to what Alix and Margaret said, I would put also that it's important, like nowadays, on which most of the schools are still a bit traditionally performance-based. Trust also means not to put pressure on students' success. It means also to wait for them to achieve. And I think that there's a very there is like a very subtle notion of trust when we do that. We encourage them, but we also wait for them to achieve it, and we avoid the pressure. And I think that nowadays in schools, generally in schools, it's a point that sometimes it's a bit forgotten. So it's just a small point that I would add upon those magnific ideas. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Maria. That is like, those are all great answers. Thank you so much for that. I am going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Priscilla. In previous Fireside Chats, we discussed how Forest Nature School relies on loose natural materials to support open-ended creative play and learning. We seem to agree that loose parts are an essential element of Forest Nature School in Canada. And now we'd like to explore the relationship between inquiry and loose parts. So the question I have to ask, is the same for all three of you, Alix, Maria, and Margaret, is what is the relationship between loose parts and emergent and inquiry-driven learning? So why don't, Alix, I'll start with you, if that's all right.
Sure. I think without loose parts, it would be really hard to participate with emergent or inquiry-based learning, because it's the use of them and the interaction of them that can really build, first of all, a problem or an inquiry in the first place, but also can serve to be solutions or to further that learning. And so for emergent, I think often you see kids using these loose parts in Forest and Nature School, especially to either serve as a physical sort of learning in let's say, trying to build a bridge so no one's feet get wet crossing a little stream. Or they might use those loose parts in their imaginative play to do more social emotional type learning. And so we see the sort of open-endedness of those loose parts making an infinity of possibilities for for them to delve into their questions and their interests.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your answer, Alix. Maria, I'm curious to hear from your perspective what you feel the relationship between loose parts and emergent and inquiry-driven learning is being in the school environment and with older students.
Yeah, I think okay, loose parts in nature is it's a huge substance for inquiries. So for me, it relates directly to inquiry. Also, it relates to wonder, to curiosity. It opens up a child on a higher level. We can also have like we can bring some loose parts to inside class if it's like in a more like 17 years old student. We can bring molecules, we can bring pieces of plastic and then understand which is the polymer behind. We can also play loose parts to older kids. Generally, we usually associate to children. Generally, like it's easier. They wonder, their curiosity opens a lot of questions. It's like free inquiry by default. But I think that it's challenging to bring it into an upper level, but it is possible. It demands a bit more of effort, but it is possible, and I think it's important. And there is also loose parts for older kids, and we might not forget it. So I think it's a substance that we can really apply in any age, and if we can make it also to teenagers, if we can direct their attention with things, with reality, they are there. Then they are motivated and intrinsically motivated because we are bringing things from their outside of the school world, from the world outside they know already, to get deeper into their knowledge. Then we want to get into knowledge a little bit more. But yes, I try to complement a little bit with the older kids. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that perspective, Maria. I think you're right. I think we often think of loose parts for the younger ones, and maybe we can explore more the value for the older children in our lives. Thank you for that. Margaret, how about you? The relationship between loose parts and inquiry driven in the environment in which you work in.
For me, loose parts are, so essential in so many ways. And a large part of it is about loose parts give kids agency. Like if we say we're adults in the back seat, we're following their lead, and yet children are often existing in spaces and with materials that were picked and given uses by adults. Like even as simple as like the parents deciding what's in the home and what it should be used for. It's same thing in schools, same thing in cities, and just thinking of that. Like I like to think of like play as a liberatory practice. It's like when you're playing, you are experiencing your own full power, and of course learning to use that responsibly. But there's something about knowing that if there's a thing and you can break it if you want to experience all the parts of yourself. And for me, that's where it's very connected to that emergent and the inquiry, but also allowing for parts of for children to have parts of themselves emerge and to wonder things about their own abilities and relationships and power that you don't get to explore in a lot of contexts, and especially not if someone cares that there's still materials left at the end of the play session.
Thank you so much for your answer, Margaret. I love the pieces that you're bringing to the table. And I just want to thank all three of you, Alix, Maria, and Margaret, each one of you. As you've been speaking, I've been like, oh, I want to respond, because Alix, when you talked about the bridge, it reminded me of something. And from my own experience, Maria talking about older students and how I've used loose parts with science with older students, and Margaret talking about that bringing yourself. I'm thinking about when I've worked with students from different parts of the world or English language learners, what loose parts of you've got me, all of you, really excited about the discussions that we're going to have as our fireside chat continues. So thank you all for your responses. And Priscilla, I will pass it back over to you.
Thank you too. So another principle that we have is Forest Nature School prioritizes building reciprocal relationships with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have been learning from this land since time immemorial. And Alix, I am going to be asking you, if you don't mind, how does a Forest Nature School program in Canada, including its staff, build trust with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities?
Thanks. This is as a settler program, it is probably one of our trickiest things to build that trust. We're pretty lucky in the Comox Valley to have a really strong First Nation here who's really generous with their time and knowledge and resources. And yet we're still have our colonial program, which we're working on. So building trust with that nation has lots of little steps. And I think fundamentally at the very foundation would be respecting the land in the way that they would like us to, but also taking their ways of knowing and helping instill that in the program as well. For example, we make tea on a weekly basis out in the forest during the colder months. And so using a lot of, we use the plants that are in the forest. So using the indigenous knowledge of what plants are good for what, and they're, exploring their benefits and taste and those kind of things with the children is one way. And then inviting our First Nation elders to come and participate in any way that they want to, and sharing what they think is most valuable with the group of children that we're working with. Those are a few of the little things that we're doing to build that trust.
Okay, thank you so much, Alix. That's like really awesome and great. Thank you for that answer. I am going to pass it over to Tu now.
Thanks, Priscilla. Forest Nature School practices, policies, and programming reflect and prioritize the building of engaged, healthy, vibrant, and diverse communities through consideration of access and equity in our decisions and actions. Margaret, a question for you. How does a Forest Nature School program in Canada, including its staff, build trust with communities who are often excluded from the Forest and Nature School movement in Canada?
I had a different thing that I was going to say, and now I'm just listening to Alix, and I'm like, I think an important thing we've been working on in our work is to let go of the beautiful Forest Nature School aesthetic, to let go of the good gear and all of that, because it's a marker of so much privilege that if somebody shows up and doesn't have it, you're immediately uncomfortable. And I think something we've been doing more and more is, instead of planning in or investing in or recommending gear, is doing that same planning and preparation around accommodations that may be needed for children with disabilities who want to be part of our programs. And to frame it more of like, if you may have difficulty walking in the snow, we have sleds. Those kinds of transitions that say this can be a place for you. And to, instead of putting an emphasis on how each individual can be the most prepared, to think about how as a group can we make sure everybody can be part and be present. And I think a huge element we've been working on a lot this year in particular is understanding that like access is not enough. And in our camp, this is the second year we've had like a shadow program where we specifically have shadows who are there to give support to children with disabilities who participate in our programs, and realizing in a free play context, in a forced context where we are emergent and inquiry-based and all of that, equity is so important. And when I say that, I think it's like the accommodation matters so that the kids can show up. And I know I'm speaking specifically to the disability component because that's what I work very closely on right now. But it matters just as much, if not more so, how the non-disabled children are holding space for participation and how they are supporting or not children with disabilities. And like no amount of planning on our end can make that happen. So something we did this year is like in our parent guide, we added a section about language where we said like, before you show up to our camp, we want you to know, please don't assume pronouns. If you don't know how to ask someone's pronoun, here's how to ask. You can say, I'm Margaret, I use she, her, how about you? Like, and same thing around disability, to name before non-disabled people come, these are appropriate questions and these are not. So that we can work towards more of a solidarity component. And I have some like lovely stories that came out of this summer. Like we had one boy in a group where he ended up being the only Anglophone, but because he had a shadow and there's all these COVID rules, we couldn't move him into a group where he could be with other Anglophones. And it's a boy who has motor difficulties, hearing loss. And the other kids in the group wanted him to be able to be part of it so much that they created their own sign language for the week so that they could all find a way to play together. No amount of planning on our end or fancy funding proposals can make that happen. It comes from the kids and it comes from naming to our members and our community that these things matter for us. And if you want to keep showing up, they need to start mattering for you. Did I answer it all? I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm just giving a moment to let that sink in. Thank you very much for that. That's a lot to think about and a lot to consider, and yeah, a lot to think about in that. I love how you're talking about how you're proactively engaging community through the handbook and setting the stage before they even arrive. That's really thought-provoking for me, and I really appreciate that. And that's just one tidbit of what you had to share, so thank you. I will give the final question to Maria. Maria, the question for you is emergent and inquiry-driven learning accessible to everyone? And what barriers exist?
So, yes, I mean, yes and no. We have to look, especially here in Quebec, the school system is very heterogeneous. So if you want to have like an emergent pedagogy, like applied to our kids, like if you want to have like, we have to look for an alternative schools. We have a lot of traditional system. So the answer is more like, it's not accessible to everybody. We have to look for it. We have to be informed, and it should be more common. But what I can see is that it's not really accessible to everyone. There are more and more efforts, especially with CNAC, and it's wonderful that CNAC has all this emphasis on emergent pedagogies, but there is a lot to do, especially in older kids. I would say that in older kids we don't see this. We don't see. There's a lot to do. That's my answer. I think that there's a lot to do, and I have to honor your effort from CNAC on this consultation project, because it's really, really what we need now, especially in COVID times. Alternative schools and alternative pedagogies. they can have like a major effect and a major impact on building like an excellent infancy on everyone, especially on kids and also on teenagers. Yeah, but definitely there's a lot to do. So that's my perspective.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being a part of this too. So this is, we're in the work together, right? So thank you for that, Maria. And thank you to all of our guest speakers for the thought that you've put in to your answers and for your preparations for tonight. I think you've really broadened the scope of what we're thinking about and what we'll be able to bring to the breakout rooms, which I will pass over to Busola to set up for us.
Yes, thank you too. And thank you to our guest speakers. Thank you for your perspectives, for your answers, and for the great work you're all doing in your first schools. Like, it's really awesome. And yeah, just to move into our breakout rooms, we're now going to divide everyone into facilitated breakout rooms to discuss how does Forest Nature School educators, practitioners in Canada support emergent and inquiry-driven learning. That is, what would you see and hear that indicates that a program is highly emergent and inquiry-driven learning environment? So each breakout room has already been assigned a facilitator who will record notes of your conversation. After the breakout room, we're all going to come back and we'll bring everyone and ask some of the breakout room facilitators to share a summary of your conversations. We will not be able to hear from everyone, but we will collect all the written notes from the breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms will last for 15 minutes.
I just wondered, Maria, if you just wanted to finish your thought.
Yeah.
I was telling Ether that sometimes in older levels, in upper levels, like for older kids, we tend to forget the concepts of nature school and forest school, but actually we can bring them inside. I was giving the example of an abstract concept that we need to do in class. Like, for instance, we are doing a distillation. We are working with glassware. We have a temperature. We have to control the temperature. We have glassware. We need a table. We need a lab. How can we bring nature inside classroom? Okay, we are maybe making a distillation of lemon peel to obtain lemonade, for instance. We are working with nature. We can work with questions. We can work with inquiries. We don't need to control the class. Me, the teacher or the professor, does need to control the class. We need to control the experiment. We need to have some degree of control, but not to control everything. And when the teacher controls everything, at some point it's abusive, because we are abusing of our role, because we are controlling everything, and we don't need to do that. We tend to forget that we don't need to do that. We can do it in a more open way, and traditionally we are not taught that way, and we are pre-programmed to teach in a more like passive way. So we speak, they listen. But at some point, we are in the 21st century, sorry. At some point, we need to remind ourselves of these forest and nature school concepts and to bring them also inside classroom also. It is possible. That's what I wanted, just the little point that I want to tell to Heather. That's it.
Thanks, Maria. I think, again, another moment with a lot to reflect upon and consider. It has me thinking about like the continuum. For me, I think a lot about how early years is a really easy, I don't know if the word is buy-in, but a lot of people just go, oh yeah, early years, let's get them outside. And I wonder about our older children, where along the line we're dropping that ball for them so that by the time that they're 17, like, yeah, like, why is that mindset? How to bring that mindset forward, and how the formative experiences. And I think there's just, I don't know if I'm thinking of like a gradient or something, but yeah, you've given us a lot to think on for sure there. Thank you for that.
Are we allowed to discuss that?
I don't know, I've lost my place in the notes. I'm trying to figure out.
It's such an interesting question. I have two sons who are 14 and 17, and you know, there's been no shortage of forced and nature school like opportunities and things from family, at least. And you know, it's definitely like a societal thing of like what's cool and what's not, and what them and their friends are into. And yeah, it is like, at what point do they, I mean, I think conventional school has something to do with it, and I think we're seeing a shift in that, but still, again, sort of seeping into the like K-3, K-4, but still not seeing a lot of opportunities at the high school level.
We kind of see it vanishing as they get older, and the point is to get it back, to make them feel that they are interdependent, because the kids, when they get older, they become independent. It's like the target of a school, or the target of a country, is to have independent and citizens. Okay, that's a target. It's easily reached, but we have to be aware that nobody is, and all of us have to be aware that nobody is absolutely independent. We depend on each other, and for a teenager to get this, and it might not be easy. And I think that if we can kind of activate their ecological soul and activate some points on them, it will get inside, and they will think in a less lost way. They will think in a more connected way. And what we search is to really to connect with them in that at those ages. We don't want to lose them. We want to have them like connected.
Yeah, and I think they come back, you know, I think it's there, it's in them. If it was instilled them in early years and younger years, I mean, this is my hope anyways, but I think that it's in there, whether they sort of know it or not, and that they'll come back.
Thank you, everyone. That was such a great conversation in the breakout rooms. I'm not sure if the people in the French breakout rooms had their own session and then joined us, or just like joined us.
We just heard there were really good things going on in your room, so we joined you.
Okay, I see. Okay, I'm just really mindful of our time here, so I think we could just go into the second breakout room, if that's okay, and then we can have a conversation on that. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through my notes here. Okay, so for the next breakout room, we're going to be discussing how does a first nature school educator or practitioner in Canada should that they trust children as learners?
To remind myself to unmute. Just waiting for Diana to join us.
Oh, she's here now.
Thank you for your patience, Diana.
So I was just going to say, just like I was talking about having to trust the land and trusting nature, we also have to trust that, again, with the loose parts play, we have to trust that that material is enough. I know after being a classroom teacher for a long time, it took a long time for me to just trust that handing kids whatever material, or allowing loose part play, trusting that loose parts are enough. You don't have to have a croquet set or a game with rules for children to be able to play and for them to be able to, in fact, it's better if you don't. But again, trusting that, because that unlearning of how to play. Yeah, that's all I was going to say.
I'm just quickly, I'm also aware of time, but you've just prompted something there, because the games piece reminded me that, you know, outside of this pedagogy and in more traditional settings, caregivers are prompted to fill that time. And what your point prompted for me was that you can also trust those down moments, that those moments of boredom or the children exploring with themselves and each other, what are we going to do now? And that we're trusting in that moment too, where there may not be, to their outside eye, anything to do. I wonder if that resonates with anybody.
Yes, it does, Heather. Does anyone here have any other thing to add or say? Suzanne, I can see your hands up. Oh, you're muted, Suzanne.
This conversation actually makes me think like we are starting a new group of children now to bring actually like less provocations and bring out less material what we bring sometimes, because it's good to see like what do they do with material or for loose parts, like what happens if you don't have anything provided. And yeah, like we have two sides, and on one side we have a box like hidden in the forest where we have like little like cooking tools and like little cooking stuff so the kids can make mud pies and stuff. But we have another side which is really smaller, and there we bring things. It's literally like 5 pots and 5 spoons, and that's all. And one kid was commenting on it that it's calmer. It's not calmer. It's like we're in the same forest. But I found it was interesting that the less provided goes to calmer, and I thought that was super interesting.
That is super interesting. Thank you. Busola, I'll return to you for regular programming.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Those were beautiful stories, like just your answers and your input tonight was very great. And I just want to thank everyone for participating in today's Fireside Chat, Relationship with Trust. We really do appreciate your inputs as we seek to co-create a set of quality indicators for forest nature schools. Thank you so much once again. This is just a reminder that we do have a form stack survey. So if you did not feel like answering questions during the event, or you would like to share it with your circles, or yeah, just like re-answering those questions or putting more information, we do have the survey links in the chat below. Also, this recording, as well as a summary of our conversations tonight, will be up on our website in the next week or two. So if you want to watch the event again, or you do want to share with other people, we would have it on our website in the following week or two. We do have our next Fireside Chat coming up on October 28th at 3 p.m. and it would be on relationship with story. Ooh, I'm excited about that one. And also, if you would like to get in touch with us in any way you feel comfortable, email, drawings, videos, audios, you can send it to community@childnature.ca. Again, thank you so much, everyone. I am going to pass it over to Tio for the French part.
Awesome. Merci beaucoup, Busola. Bon, merci pour ce soir, merci pour la discussion. Et on veut remercier vous tous pour votre participation et dites que nous apprécions votre contribution alors que nous cherchons à co-créer un ensemble d'indicateurs de qualité pour la pratique des écoles de la nature. On veut vous rappeler de l'enquête FormStack et vous pouvez répondre aux questions là. Si vous n'avez pas répondu pendant la discussion ou si vous souhaitez la partager avec votre entourage. Aussi, on veut vous rappeler que cet enregistrement ainsi qu'un résumé des conversations seront disponibles sur notre site web dans une semaine ou deux. Et on veut annoncer que la prochaine discussion informelle sera le 28 octobre à 15 heures EDT sur le thème la relation avec le récit. Et si vous voulez contacter nous, s'il vous plaît, vous pouvez envoyer un courriel à community@childnature.ca. And finally, I just really want to thank Ursula for co-hosting tonight. I just want to appreciate you for a moment. You are such a natural at this, and I felt my nervousness really come right down as you led us through. You have such a beautiful way of facilitating, and I personally want to thank you for helping me feel comfortable and for helping me feel more comfortable as it went along. So thank you to you. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much too. It was wonderful co-hosting with you. Like it was the same for me too. You made it feel so natural. So yeah, I am super grateful to you as well. I am grateful to everyone here for also being able, taking out time to attend. I know it's a bit late, but yeah, I am super grateful for each and every one of you for taking out time to attend tonight. And I really do hope you have a great night and hoping to see you in our next Fireside Chat event. Thank you, everyone.
Au revoir.
Bonsoir. Thank you.
Bye.